He's likely one of the most recognizable actors of our time, Brad Pitt. He and his equally famous ex, Angelina Jolie, have been going through divorce proceedings since 2016. But that's not the only legal battle they're fighting, as Jolie is ordered to provide more documents to the court. We're going to break it all down for you right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. The legal drama between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie is getting a bit messier. You see, it has been 10 years since they married and almost 8 years since they announced their divorce. For Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, they are still embroiled in court proceedings, each accusing the other of very bad things, terrible misconduct. While they were legally declared single in 2019, reporting indicates they still haven't reached a final agreement in their divorce. And now, the separate business-related lawsuits they filed against each other are providing more context about their situation. So, a judge, by the way, has just ordered Angelina Jolie to turn over hundreds of confidential documents that she had her employees sign. And we're going to get to that because that's going to be a massive headache for her. Now, much of this legal drama, it centers around a French estate called Miraval. The two had apparently bought this property back in 2008. They actually got married there in 2015. There was a winery on the estate. Pitt says his investments made it a very successful business. The couple had allegedly planned to pass the business down to their 6 children, but as you're about to see, things got very complicated. Jolie had ended up selling her stake in Miraval to a third party, which Pitt and his legal team say she wasn't allowed to do without his approval, this according to an agreement. So now he's suing her. And the court documents reveal details about their very contentious divorce, and we're going to dive into those in just a moment. But to give you even more context about the breakdown of the relationship, and I should say really the breakdown of the family, and it's really sad to see, this comes as at least 3 of the couple's children have decided to drop the Pitt part of their last name. Pitt and Jolie, they share 6 kids, Maddox, Pax, Sahara, Shiloh, and twins Vivienne and Knox. The 3 adopted children were perhaps some of the most famous babies in the world after Angelina Jolie brought them home from Cambodia, Vietnam, and Ethiopia. There were long custody battles, with Pitt winning 50-50 custody at one point in 2021, but that was overturned on appeal. Twins are now the only minor-age children. 18-year-old Zahara late last year dropped the double last name, choosing to introduce herself at a sorority event in November as just Zahara Marley Jolie. Her youngest sister, 15-year-old Vivienne, did the same. She was credited in the playbill of the Broadway production The Outsiders as Vivienne Jolie. And now Shiloh has hired an attorney to legally change her name. The court documents were filed on her 18th birthday in May. Pitt has accused Jolie of intentionally poisoning his children against him, but Jolie claims it was Pitt's own actions that drove them all away. Jolie filed for divorce in 2016 following an alleged incident on a plane. Jolie had claimed that Pitt had been drinking heavily before attacking her and the children. He also allegedly poured beer and wine on them. Pitt denies that any of that happened, but the Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services, they investigated this. They cleared Brad Pitt of the allegations of physical abuse. No criminal charges were ever brought, but the relationships with his children seem to have been strained nonetheless. In 2020, Pax had this to say in an Instagram post, quote, "Happy Father's Day to this world-class a-hole. You time and time again prove yourself to be a terrible and despicable person. You have no consideration or empathy toward your 4 youngest children who tremble in fear when in your presence. You will never understand the damage you have done to my family because you are incapable of doing so. You have made the lives of those closest to me a constant hell. You may tell yourself and the world whatever you want, but the truth will come to light someday. So happy Father's Day, you effing awful human being." Wow. So between the ongoing divorce negotiations, custody battles, lawsuits they filed against each other, brangelina have a lot going on. Yes, say. resurrected that moniker for purposes of this episode. Hey there, everybody. I want to thank Upside for sponsoring this episode of Sidebar. So Upside is a free app that gets you cash back on daily essentials like gas, groceries, dining. Believe it or not, I do know how to pump gas. I don't know if there was like controversy surrounding that, but I do. And I use the free Upside app when I do. Mikey, if they don't believe me, just show them the proof. I mean, you see how happy I look right there? You know why? Because you get cash back when you fill up your tank. Why not do that? And there are over 85,000 gas stations, grocery stores, restaurants, all on the Upside app, ensuring that cash back is always just around the corner. And yes, this is actually real cash back. No confusing rewards or points or credits, just actual money you can transfer straight to your bank account. So once you have the app, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You pay as usual using a debit or credit card, and you follow the steps on the app. You get paid. It's that easy. Upside users earn hundreds of dollars in cash back every year. And as you saw me just do, you can use Upside at places like, Shell, Exxon, Mobil, 7-Eleven, Sunoco, restaurants like Chipotle, Papa John's, Dairy Queen, Domino's, KFC, Taco Bell. You familiar with any of those? Any of those ring a bell? That's just to name a few. Now, to find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on screen and use our promo code SIDEBAR and get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's promo code SIDEBAR for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. Anyway, with all that as background, now let's get into the latest legal court fight, the latest court documents in the fight over Miraval. So we're going to try to simplify this for you as best as we can because there's a lot of legalese involved, but hey, that's what I'm here for, right? So here is the background. Pitt and Jolie, they purchased this chateau and vineyard in France and also the wine business with a 50-50 partnership with winemaker Mark Perrin. And the purchases also involve two LLCs or limited liability companies, Mondo Bongo on Pitt's side and Nouvelle on Jolie's side. By the way, not surprising. When you usually set up companies for big purchases or acquisitions, or if you're doing business or even trademarks, it's for liability purposes, for taxation purposes. So yes, they set up these separate companies to do this. Now, these companies are also named in the lawsuit and countersuit. But you fast forward to 2021, and Jolie says a deal between herself and Brad Pitt fell through. So she sold her stake in Miraval to a subsidiary of Stoli Group, known for their vodka. And apparently, according to court filings, Jolie didn't want to be in the alcohol business anymore. That's why she sold her stake. But Brad Pitt claims that this broke their agreement that they had to get approval from each other before a sale. He also claims that the man running Stoli tried to commit a hostile takeover of the Miraval business. So Pitt wants the sale to be undone. Jolie, through Nouvelle, filed a massive $350 million countersuit, accusing Pitt of misusing company assets for his own personal projects. In May, Jolie's attorneys filed an opposition to William B. Pitt's motion to compel more documentation. The introduction of the document gives us context about what's going on here. It says, quote, as part of that sale, Jolie agreed to a relatively standard non-disparagement clause, an NDA, limited to not disparaging Miraval's wine business. But at the last minute, Pitt stepped back from his agreement to buy Jolie's interest in Miraval, and the deal collapsed. The question at the heart of this case is why? Jolie's answer is that Pitt stepped back because on March 12, 2021, as part of the couple's ongoing child custody dispute, Jolie filed for the judge's eyes only 2 offers of proof detailing the evidence of Pitt's domestic violence against Jolie and their children. When Jolie filed the evidence in the custody suit, she was careful to file it under seal so that no member of the public could see it. But Jolie's sealed filing, which included emails, summaries of the family's expected testimony, and other evidence, caused Pitt to fear that the information could eventually become public. For the previous 5 years, Jolie had never revealed to the public any details of Pitt's abuse and related efforts to cover it up. Nevertheless, Pitt now demanded that Jolie contractually bind herself to that silence. To effectuate this demand, Pitt changed course and suddenly conditioned his purchase of Jolie's share of Miraval on a greatly expanded NDA, now covering Pitt's personal misconduct, whether related to Miraval or not. So that's the basic contention here, that she would not agree to this expanded, more inclusive NDA. The filing goes on to say, quote, Jolie rejected Pitt's new expansive NDA, but still gave Pitt one last chance to buy her interest on the already agreed upon terms, including the original NDA covering the business only. On June 2nd, 2021, Pitt responded by proposing an even harsher version of his expanded NDA. With Pitt's choice made on June 15th, 2021, Jolie notified him in writing that she intended to explore sales to third parties. And in October 2021, she sold her interest to a subsidiary of the Stoli Group. Pitt retaliated by suing her. So the complaint goes on to describe some of what Pitt allegedly wanted to cover up with this NDA. Now, what I'm about to say is according to Jolie and her lawyers. These are allegations, but it says, quote, the cross-complaint describes a father's terrifying actions against his family, including children as young as 8 years old, on a chartered flight where the family literally had no place to run and no place to hide. The conduct caused significant and ongoing post-traumatic stress. At trial, Jolie will prove through testimony, emails, photographs, and other evidence why Pitt was so concerned about his own misconduct that he blew up his own deal to purchase Jolie's interest in Miraval because she refused to agree to his new expansive NDA. Now, according to Angelina Jolie, there is this unknown crew member on the flight who's the one who reported the incident to police, that the FBI and the Department of Children and Family Services opened separate investigations. According to the filing, quote, the FBI found probable cause to charge Pitt with a federal crime, although the U.S. Attorney's Office ultimately declined to press charges. The FBI's later internal review concluded that the investigation and charging decision repeatedly violated Jolie's and their children's victims' rights. Now, Jolie's attorneys say repeatedly in their filings that Jolie has never wished for any of this to be made public and has never used the allegations of abuse against Pitt, but she needs to lay the foundation of why this NDA was so unlike others and why Brad Pitt allegedly wanted it that way. So the two lawyers went back and forth, with Jolie's attorney arguing that she is not against all NDAs, but this one is just too broad and burdensome. Well, as part of his filings, Pitt's attorneys included a declaration from a former security guard named Tony Webb. And Tony Webb apparently worked for the couple and stayed on with Jolie after the divorce. Well, according to Pitt, Webb claims that Jolie had employees sign very strict NDAs that are very similar to the one she refuses to sign. Now, in her objection filing, Jolie's legal team wrote with regarding Webb, quote, Pitt clearly is trying to gain an unfair advantage by offering this contested evidence for the first time on reply when Jolie has no opportunity to respond. The law is crystal clear that this form of evidence sandbagging grossly violates due process of law and should be struck. Pitt is now claiming that conversations with two contractors about testimony in a different case are somehow relevant here. Jolie contests the testimony's relevance, its credibility, Webb works for Pitt, and its accuracy. Now, despite Jolie's resistance, the judge in this case has ordered her to produce every NDA agreement that she signed with a third party over an 8-year period. In response, Jolie filed a motion for the whole case to be dismissed, saying actually her name isn't on any of the Miraval sale paperwork. It was done through the LLC. The judge has not yet ruled on that motion yet. Now, to be clear, if there are any privilege issues in any of these NDAs, usually what happens is there is a team that goes through the documents to mark which ones are privileged and which ones cannot be disclosed during the course of the litigation, or there are other safeguards that have to be put forth. But look, like I said, this legal battle is getting a lot uglier. This is a win for Brad Pitt to force Angelina Jolie's hand to show these NDAs, because if it could be said that she signed them, then there's a strong argument that she's in the wrong for not agreeing to sign the one that Pitt brought forth. So it's a small issue in a larger case, but there you go. A lot to catch up on, especially with the kids. Here's hoping there is a peaceful resolution, though, for everyone involved, because this is, again, a very, very ugly and legally tenuous situation. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time. Bye.